There are two kinds of books. The first kind is entertainment, something you read, enjoy for a few days, and then forgot. The second kind is transformation, something that rewires you. You don't just read it, you live with it. The ideas sit in your mind like seeds, and if you water them, they grow into a completely different way of seeing the world. The books I'm about to share with you belong to the second category. They're not just good reads, they're lenses, they're tools, they're mirrors. Each one of them has shifted me in ways I couldn't ignore. I'm not gonna summarize them like a teacher handing you a homework. Instead, I want to reflect on what each book gave me, the one core idea that stays with me, and why I think it can matter for you too. So, grab your cup of coffee and let's dig deep into this. So the first book we have is the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. When I first opened the Almanack of Naval Ravikant, I thought it would be another business book, another collection of tips about money or productivity. But the deeper I read, the more I realize this isn't a book about business at all. It's a book about clarity. Naval speaks in principles, not hacks. He shows you how to build wealth, yes, but more importantly, how to design freedom. He talks about leverage, about playing long-term games, about creating systems that compound. And the more I sit with his words, the more I saw the illusion I was trapped in. I used to think the answer was working harder, more hours, more effort. But Naval made me pause and ask what I'm building that works while I'm not working, what I'm building that compounds over time. That single question forced me to rethink my choices. Was I just spinning my wheels, or was I building something that could grow with me? That's when the book stopped being just interesting and started being uncomfortable, because clarity is uncomfortable. It forces you to admit where you're resting in your life. And yet Naval doesn't stop at wealth. He says something that has never left me. Happiness is a skill, not a reward, not a destination, a skill. Something you can train, like muscles in the gym. That flipped everything for me. I had been chasing happiness like it was something out there waiting for me at the finish line of success. But Naval showed me it here, right now, in how I think, how I pay attention, how I live. That's why this book matters. It makes you ask the hard questions about wealth, happiness, and freedom. And once you've seen that clarity, you can't unsee it. The second book we have is Psycho-Cybernetics. If Naval taught me how to think about freedom, Psycho-Cybernetics taught me how to think about myself. Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon, and he noticed something strange. He could change someone's face, fix a scar, reshape a nose, but the life didn't always change. Some people walked away with a new confidence, others stayed trapped in the same old insecurity. Why? Because surgery didn't touch their self-image. That's the heart of this book. Your self-image controls your life. When I read that, I felt exposed because I could see the ways I was still dragging an old version of myself into my prison. No matter how much progress I made, part of me still saw myself as not enough. Maltz explained that your brain is a goal-seeking machine, like a muscle. It consistently adjusts toward the target you program into. The problem is, most of us have programmed the wrong targets. We've told ourselves, I'm lazy, I'm unlucky, I always fail, and so the brain keeps steering us toward that reality. But here's the power. You can reprogram it, not with the fake affirmations, but with repetition, visualization, and practice. You create a new mental picture of yourself, disciplined, capable, confident, and your brain begins working to match that picture. When I started applying this, I noticed something subtle. I didn't have to force discipline anymore. I just stopped identifying as someone trying to be disciplined, and I started seeing myself as someone who already is. And when your identity shifts, your action naturally follows. That's why Psycho-Cybernetics is timeless. It shows you that the real battlefield isn't outside, it's inside. Change the picture you hold of yourself, and your whole life begins to change with it. The third book is one of my favorite, Meditation by Marcus Aurelius. If there's one book that humbles me every time I open it, it's Meditation. Think about it. The most powerful man in the world, emperor of Rome, commander of arms, ruler of millions, sat alone and wrote down reminders to himself. Not speeches, not propaganda for his people, just raw private notes about how to be a good man, how to control his anger, how to face death. That's what this book is. Marcus writes into himself a personal journal that somehow become a manual for life. The core of meditation is the idea that you don't control the world, but you always control yourself. Your judgment, your action, you respond to whatever fate threw at you. That's where your power lies. For me, that truth is both freeing and heavy. Freeing because it reminds me I don't need to waste energy on things outside my control, politics, gossip, the chaos of the world. Heavy because it leaves no excuses. If I lost my temper, that's on me. If I wasted a day, that's on me. If I let bitterness poison me, that's a choice I made. The passage that stays with me most is Marcus reminds himself, you could live life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. When you really take that in, everything changes. Suddenly, the small complaints vanish. The wasted hours sting more. You begin to live with urgency, but not panic. Came urgency, gratitude urgency, because you know time is slapping and death is always near. That's what meditation gives me. Not comfort, but clarity. A kind of mirror I can't escape from. Every time I read it, I feel both smaller, just another man passing through, and stronger because if Marcus could carry the weight of empire with calmness, I can carry my little burdens too. The next book we have is Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. If meditations show us the wisdom of Stoic empire, Ego is the Enemy drags us into the trenches of modern life. Ryan Holiday takes the ancient truths of Stoicism and shows us how ego ruins them. Ego makes you believe you own success. Ego makes you claim prize. Ego makes you resist learning because you think you already know enough. The book is full of stories, generals, athletes, leaders, all undone, not by lack of talent, but by their ego. And when I read it, I wasn't hard to see myself into those pages. Because ego doesn't scream at you, it whispers. It's that little voice saying, you've worked hard enough, you deserve the reward. Or don't listen to him, what does he know? Or if you fail, everyone will laugh. The core idea here is brutal but liberating. Your ego is the biggest barrier between you and greatness. When I internalized that, I started catching myself more often. When I wanted credit for something small, when I resist feedback because it stung, when I thought I was above a certain task. Every time I realized that's not me, that's my ego. And the more I killed it, the lighter I felt. I started to care less about being seen and more about being real. Less about applause, more about the work. Less about winning in the eyes of others, more about building in silence. This book didn't give me new tricks, it gave me a new enemy to fight. And once you see that enemy, the one inside your own chest, you stop wasting time fighting the world. So the next book we have is also by Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. If ego is the enemy shows you what to avoid, the obstacle is the way shows you what to embrace. The idea is simple. What blocks your path is the path. At first that sounds like a motivational poster, but when you see the story Ryan shares, soldiers, inventors, activists who turned setbacks into strength, you realize it's a law of life. For me, this book landed hardest when I was in one of my lowest points. Everything I wanted seemed far away. Every door felt closed. And I was asking myself, why me? Why is this so hard? Then I remembered the book's core truth. The difficult is the training. The struggle isn't the distraction, it's the assignment. Then my mindset shift. Instead of running from challenges, I started leaning into them. Instead of asking, why me? I asked it, what's this trying to teach me? And the truth is, that question changes everything. Problems stop being punishments and start being teachers. Resistance stop being a wall and start being a weight you can lift. The Stoics understood this. What stands in the way becomes the way. This book is just a modern echo of that ancient truth. And every time life hits me in the face, I hear that line in my head. The obstacle is the way. And somehow that gives me strength to keep moving forward. The next book we have is The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. When I first picked up The Millionaire Fastlane, I almost dismissed it. The title sounded like another get-rich-quick gimmick, promising Lambos and mentions in 12 months. But the pages told a different story. This book isn't about cars or cash. It's about freedom. It's about rejecting the program we've been handed since childhood. Go to school, get good degrees, find a safe job, claim the ladder, and one day, maybe, you will finally get to live. DeMarco calls that path the slow lane, and he's right. It's not a plan, it's a trap. The fast lane is different. It's about building something that multiplies beyond your own time. A system, a business, an engine that creates value at scale. Not passive income fantasy, but leverage and growth. That free you while you're still young enough to live. The truth that cut deepest is bluntness about time. Money matters, but time matters more. Every year wasted on some day is a year you don't get back. I realized I was still hiding behind excuses. Wait until I'm older, wait until I'm ready, wait until it's safe, but waiting is just another word for wasting. This book didn't hand me a step-by-step map. What gave me was urgency. It made freedom feels non-negotiable. Not a dream for later, but a project for now. That mindset shift alone changes everything. The next book we have is The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. I'm sorry to recommend him a lot, but I like his work. This book isn't one you read once, it's one you live with. The Daily Stoic is a collection of 366 meditation, one of each day of the year, drawn from Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. Each day has a short passage, followed by a modern reflection. What I love about this book, it's simplicity. You don't need an hour to read it. You need 2 minutes. But those 2 minutes can redirect your entire day. For me, the discipline of opening it every morning becomes more than reading. It becomes grounding. It reminded me daily of the truths I'd otherwise forgot. That control is limited. That virtue is enough. that gratitude is power. One day's meditation may remind you to stay calm under insult. Another may remind you that wealth without wisdom is poverty. Another may remind you that you could die today. Each line is like a compass reset. It pulls you back when the world has dragged you, of course. The quote of this book is this: wisdom is not something you learn once, it's something you practice daily. And I've seen the difference in myself. Days I read it, I move through life slower. Days I don't, I slap back into chaos. That's why this isn't just a book, it's a ritual. And rituals shape life. The next book we have is Clear Thinking by Parrish. Parrish's whole message is this: most of our problems don't come from lack of information, they come from lack of clarity. We make poor decisions not because we're stupid, because our minds are forged by biases, emotions, and noise. Reading this book felt like someone cleaning the windows of my brain. Suddenly I could see where I was falling myself. One of the most powerful ideas he shares is about the difference between motion and progress. We often stay busy because it feels safe, but busyness isn't the same as moving forward. That distinction hit me hard. How many times I filled my day with work just to avoid the real uncomfortable action that mattered. Another idea that stuck with me: decisions are multiplied over time. One good decision compounds, but so does one bad decision. Clarity now doesn't just save you today, it saves your future. This book pushed me to slow down before reacting, to pause before rushing, to ask better questions before choosing. And that small shift has saved me from so many mistakes I would have sleepwalked into. The truth is, in a world drowning in information, clear thinking is rare. And rare skills are priceless. That's why this book feels like more than self-help. It feels like survivor training for the modern mind. The second book is The Diary of CEO. The Diary of a CEO isn't just about Steven, it's about life principles. He's collected from building businesses, interviewing leaders, and navigating his own failures. The structure of the book is unique. 33 laws, each one is a distillation of hard-earned wisdom. Some are about success, some are about relationships, and some about self-awareness. The law that shocked me most was: you must play long-term games with long-term people. Simple words, but they carry weight. I realized how much my energy had been wasted in short-term pursuit with people who weren't aligned with my vision. Steven's honesty also struck me. He doesn't pretend to have it all figured out. He admits the emptiness that comes even when he achieved success. That rawness made me reflect on my own pursuit. Am I chasing status or am I building substance? This book is like sitting with a mentor who's just a few steps ahead, telling you what really matters and what doesn't. And for me, it made me rethink not just how I work, but why I work. The final book on this list is The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. The Mountain Is You is about self-sabotage, how we build invisible walls inside ourselves, how we block our own growth, how we become our own enemy. Reading it, it was uncomfortable because every page felt like it was exposing me. All the times I delayed action because I was scared. All the time I settled for less because I didn't believe I deserved more. All the time I pointed at the world when the problem was me. The core truth of this book is that your biggest obstacle isn't outside you, it's inside. And if you can claim that inner mountain, the outer one becomes easier. What changed me most was the idea that self-sabotage often comes from hidden self-protection. You stay small because it feels safe. You procrastinate because action risks failure. You cling to pain because healing means change. That insight made me less judgmental, more curious. Instead of just asking why I'm failing, I started asking what I'm protecting myself from. And that shift unlocked doors I didn't know were locked. The book won't just motivate you, it will confront you. It will hold up a mirror and force you to see the ways you are standing in your own way. And if you're ready, it will help you break through. When I look at all those boxes together, I see a pattern. Naval Ravikant teaches us to think clearly about wealth and happiness. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to master ourselves, not the world. Ryan Holiday warns us against ego and shows us how to turn struggle into strength. DeMarco pushes us to reject the slow life and choose freedom now. The Daily Stoic grounds us in daily wisdom. Parrish turns us to think clearly when the world is noisy. Bartlett shows us modern laws for a meaningful life. And Brianna Wiest reminds us that the biggest battle is always within. Those aren't just books, they're mirrors. They don't give you easy answers. They force you to see yourself and from there to change. If even one of them lands deeply with you, the next year could look very different. Because one clear idea, taken seriously, can shift an entire life. And that's why I'm sharing them. Not as a list, not as a homework, but as reflections that have shaped me and may shape you too. And if you want me to dive deep into any of those books, just tell me in the comments. See you on the next one. Peace.